So the best way I can describe Late Night with the Devil is that it's one of the best Stephen King stories that he never wrote. That is to say that this felt like a Stephen King short story come to life. And if that piques your interest, then buckle up because Late Night with the Devil is a wild ride and an early contender for best horror film of 2024. I had an absolute blast with this movie, and I think this is an absolute watch for any horror fans, and by extension, any Stephen King fan. The film is about Jack Delroy, a late night talk show host who is trying his best to compete with the titan of late night, Johnny Carson. While finding mild success, he never actually achieves this goal. And when Jack's wife dies, his show spirals into absurdity in order to get ratings. Then, one Halloween night in 1977, Jack decides to put on an epic Halloween special, inviting a psychic, a paranormal skeptic, and most importantly, a young girl who claims to be possessed by the devil. Needless to say, shit gets wild. Now, there are many reasons why this film is so damn good, but I want to start with one of the best aspects of this film: the unique style and presentation. Late Night with the Devil is basically a found footage film, but it's a found footage film unlike anything we've seen before. And how it plays out is this. In the opening 2 to 3 minutes, we get an unknown narrator who tells us all about the culture of the 1970s before getting into discussing the late night show with Jack Delroy. After the exposition, the narrator tells us, "What you are about to see is the unaired taping of that disturbing Halloween special." From there, the film transitions into the actual taping of the Halloween special, and we stay with this footage for the remainder of the film. So basically, what we get here is a full episode of a late night show, and you get to watch as the show begins in a playful manner, but then as the show goes on, it starts to get more and more spooky. And I think this style of presentation makes for a very effective and entertaining movie. And that last part cannot be understated. This is without a doubt one of the most engaging, entertaining horror films I've seen in quite some time. The film grabs your attention from frame one, and you will find yourself sucked into the story as if you're in a trance. And to piggyback off the style, another cool aspect is that, mixed in with the actual taping of the show, we also get behind the scenes footage of the taping. These quick scenes basically act as a bridge between each guest, and they're the only moments of the film where we as an audience can catch our breath. So basically, anytime they cut to commercial, the film transitions into black and white footage where we follow Jack and his producer all around the set. All in all, the way this film is presented is wholly original and makes for an engrossing watch. Another thing I loved is that this is a slow burn horror film, and I, for one, love me some slow burn horror. I love a horror movie that starts with small, spooky scenes, but as the film moves along, the scares get bigger and the stakes get higher. And that is without a doubt how Late Night with the Devil is structured. The first two guests on the show are just an appetizer for the grand finale with the little possessed girl, and the movie respects your patience. It's not to say that the first two guests are boring, because they're not. It's just that the film uses them as building blocks for what's to come. And like I said, this is an engaging, entertaining movie, so even though it's a slow burn, it still captivates you with its presentation. And like any slow burn horror film, the slow burn is worth it if the film hits you with an explosive climax. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to report that the climax of this movie goes so hard that it's absolutely worth the wait. And I will leave it there for now. I have to give a special shout out to the lead actor here. And I hate to admit it, but I've seen him in so many things, but I've actually never said his name before. So I'll try not to butcher it, but I probably will because I'm terrible with names. And his name is David Damascelin. I'll just call him David to avoid embarrassing myself. We've seen David in so many things, whether it's Dune, The Dark Knight, Prisoners, or even Suicide Squad. He's always been a supporting actor, and after having seen him in this, I don't know why. David is absolutely incredible in this movie. This guy has some acting chops and deserves to be a leading man. David and many of his co-stars 100% understood the assignment here, and they all showed up with their A game. Another shout out goes to Ingrid Torelli, who plays the possessed girl. So we've seen possessed children like 1,000 times in movies, but Torelli brings a memorable, creepy performance. Hell, there are moments where she just smiles at the camera, and those smiles are scarier than most other possessed children performances. If there's one negative I have with the film, it's in its ending. As I said earlier, the film's climax goes so hard, and it's an absolute blast to watch unfold. However, in the midst of this batshit crazy climax, the film, let's say, transitions into the realm of surrealism. And we stay here for about 4 to 5 minutes before we return to the talk show, and then the movie just ends. I felt like at one moment the movie was on such a high with this climax, I was smiling from ear to ear. Then the movie slowed way down to become a little surreal, and I feel like this little segment robbed the movie of its energetic climax. I understand why they do this, as it reveals some important information for the story, but at the same time, that climax was so damn entertaining that I wish we would have stayed in that moment instead of cutting to something else. Now, to wrap up here, I just want to say that I've purposely left out any descriptions of the horror here because I feel like the less you know, the better. But just trust me when I say that the horror set pieces are fantastic. The horror is used sparingly and is mostly used in its third act, but as sparse as it is, it's super effective when shit starts to hit the fan. Overall, I think this is the best horror film of 2024, which I know I said that with my review of stop motion, but Late Night with the Devil has pushed stop motion to the number 2 spot. Late Night with the Devil is the horror film to beat this year, and I'll be surprised if any movie does top this because it is that good. To me, this is a must-watch film. Please go check this one out if it's playing near you, and I promise you'll have a blast watching this in the theater. If you love horror, or as I said before, even if you like Stephen King, you owe it to yourself to check this one out. It's without a doubt one of the most captivating horror films I've ever seen.